Welcome to Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge, a podcast for tech executives. We provide strategies and tactics to help executives succeed and further their career goals. With interviews from industry experts, leaders, and innovators, this show will surely get you on the edge of your seat with thought-provoking advice on how to stay ahead of the competition. Welcome to Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge, a podcast exploring the latest trends, strategies, and insights in technology leadership. We'll discuss the most important topics and ideas shaping the industry today, from emerging technologies to digital transformation and beyond. Join us to learn all the juicy secrets of tech leaders, their biggest successes and failures, on our quest for gaining that all-important technology edge. So are you ready? Let's get started. Our guest today is Garrick Tate. Garrick is an AI futurist, serial entrepreneur, and product development coach. His expertise is at the intersection of AI, IQ, and EQ. This allows him to position his clients to have increased impact, growth, and success. With over a decade of experience creating businesses, Garrick has a reputation as a successful entrepreneur. He has founded software development, outsourcing, and publishing companies. Metrics include leading and growing organizations to 75 employees and seven-figure annual revenue. He's a sought-after speaker on AI's future and its practical application in business. His expertise and passion for the subject have earned him a reputation as a respected voice in the AI community, and he's often sought out by companies looking for advice on how to leverage the power of AI to drive growth and success. So welcome to the show, Garrick.
Glad to be here, Mike. I love the radio FM DJ voice. I've been watching a few of your episodes and hearing it live. There's nothing else like it.
I love it that your bio says that your expertise is at the intersection of AI, IQ, and EQ. So do you want to explain that to people?
Yeah, I got this suggestion very graciously from my business partner, and felt like it was a beautiful way of summarizing my interest. I think that humans are like the most interesting thing out there, and the way that we tick, I think we get a lot of flack for being quote unquote irrational and for having issues. But if you look at how far we've come and what the alternatives are, like we're solving really complicated problems like there ain't no tomorrow. And so to acknowledge that, to give space to that with EQ, IQ, and then see how we're replicating it, I think it's like the most exciting game in town. And so I'm the most pro-human guy you'll ever meet, and I'm just excited to be at this age of the future.
So how do you see those three things intersecting with people? AI, IQ, and EQ.
Yes, sir. So there's this idea called Moravec's paradox. Have you heard of that?
No.
So it's this idea that things that we think are easy can be very hard for computers. So it's easy for a computer to maybe beat a human in a game of chess, but it's very hard for it to pick up a knight and say, hey, this is a knight versus the bishop and what have you, because interfacing with reality is very difficult, because that's the problem that evolution or what have you has spent the longest amount of time solving. And so I think that we don't give ourselves enough credit, and I think that in that EQ is a source of intelligence. I think that there's this fantastic idea I got from Jordan Peterson of sanity is something that we have to partially outsource. There's no such thing as a sane hermit. So we outsource sanity by like bouncing off of people, and every single time I face a hard problem, I've always looked to other people to kind of verbally process it with. We outsource our sanity, we outsource our processing power by talking with each other. And so to make sure that we're leveraging that EQ side, make sure that we're leveraging that side that makes us human, I think is a deep wellspring of wisdom and intelligence that can't be overstated. And that IQ is our ability to process large amounts of information through wet work, and then to take these principles that we're learning about the brain and trying to embed them in silicon is it looks like one of the most exciting games in town. And so for me, it just builds a beautiful tapestry.
It's interesting when you talk about outsourcing the processing, because years ago I worked for a law firm as a network engineer, and one of our big jobs would be like to go to our satellite offices and around the country and fix different things. And you'd be given like 2 days to fix something that normally at home you'd have 5, 6, 7 days to fix. You know, it was like they didn't want to spend a lot of money on the trip. You had to go there. And of course, people say, how do you do that? Well, you pretty much work 24 hours a day for two straight days, and then you go back. But one of the things we always used to say, there'd always be two of us that would go on these trips, and we'd be digging through the intricacies of the settings of like a Windows NT server, and couldn't figure what's wrong. I know there's a way to fix this. What is wrong? So then you tell the other person, I'm having this problem. And have you tried going in here and checking this checkbox? Oh my God, it worked. It's funny how someone who's not intimately involved with the problem that you're having looks at it completely less stressed. And so suddenly, oh, here's the answer, so that's interesting. Outsourcing your sanity. I'd never heard anyone say that before, but that's a truthful statement. Actually, I think we do that more often than we realize. So tell me a little bit about, it says you're a serial entrepreneur. You've grown various businesses. What's been your biggest challenge so far?
Biggest challenge? That's a fantastic question. So in my background is originally in internet marketing and marketing and sales, and I grew up kind of in that world, and I realized that I much preferred product development over it. I preferred kind of giving the value as opposed to having to articulate the value, and I think that was probably just a grass is greener on the other side sort of thing.
Sure.
And but leveraged our first company, a publishing company, which is essentially just networking, building relationships, and market digital products. Then from there, launched a software company. We've now spun off additionally a VA company on top of it. And at this point, I kind of feel like I've taken big bites out of that product and technology bite of the pie. And at this point, I'm looking to the future to start getting back more into that kind of growth and marketing chops that I left behind a while back ago, and looking to the future of producing content, supporting people with in the AI space, and kind of becoming a key person of influence. So that's right now a major focus and a quite exciting next mountain to climb.
That's really interesting. I think people, the grass is always greener thing is such a common thing that I see with my clients. Like I recently had to counsel a client who he was completely letting people step all over him at his company. And then he's like, I'm stressing out my family. I'm never seeing my family. Well, but are you setting any boundaries around these things? No. Well, you got to you've got to take control. Well, no, I think it might be better if I switch jobs. It's not going to be better. If you're the problem, it's not going to, it's not going to get improved on the other side. Well, just like with you, like if your passion lied in one place and you were working in another, no matter how much you try to make that other one work, it's never going to be as good as where your passion lies. And that's why you kind of had to pivot over there. That's sort of a cool revelation on your part. So
yeah, I think it's powerful to realize that, Mark Manson has this idea of the shit sandwich, and the idea is like, well, whatever you're going to be doing, there's going to be parts of it that are pretty shitty, and so you need to decide which problem would you want to tackle. And in some ways, that's more helpful than kind of saying, what it feels good all the time. Well, the answer is fucking nothing. Nothing feels good all the time. So you want to choose those things that you can get out of bed for, and that's paired with this other idea that the reason why you're plateauing right now is you haven't mastered that next skill set of the game. And if you go to something new, you're going to plateau probably around the same number of employees because you probably haven't mastered that level of the game you're playing. And so once you sit down and can put your shoulders back and really drive towards the problem, and you can define it properly, that defining is so critical. But once you do that, then there's really theoretically no limit, or at least a very, very high limit of what you can accomplish.
Yeah. So let's talk about, kind of the elephant in the room here. Let's talk about AI a little bit. You hear people today. In fact, I have a very close friend who is a marketing coach, and she's extremely afraid of AI. And then you have other people that like embrace it in every aspect of their business.
Yeah.
Who do you think is the right? Who do you think's in the right on that?
Well, in every great shuffling of resources and wealth, there are some people who are excited for it, that are moving forward, and there are some people that are scared and have retreat from that. And advancement is not something to be taken for granted. It's not a guarantee, but so far, humanity's bet to that future has paid off repeatedly. And I think that AI does absolutely pose unique challenges and will require unique solutions. But I think that if history teaches us anything, it's that technology amplifies us. It amplifies us on what is already on our what's inside of us. And so long as we can pair it with the right amount of wisdom, I think that the future looks incredibly optimistic based on everything I see from, looking at the parallels between AI and Darwinian evolution, and parallels between, the creation of the generative AIs and the older innovations of electricity and adding power to technology. I think there's a lot to be taken from history to think the future looks positive.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. I think, like you mentioned earlier, computers beating humans at chess, and then they come out with the chess playing program AlphaZero, and it's all AI driven. They taught it how to play chess by using chess games and pushing chess games at it, and even the former world champion, he decided not to defend his title because he was literally bored with the competition that he had. He's head and shoulders over everybody else. He has mentioned in interviews how much he's learned from going over games that AlphaZero has played, because
Magnus Carlsen, right? That's
exactly.
the man you're talking about. Yes.
Yep. And he says he's come up with new strategies that he would have never thought about, just because of the way the machine kind of opened his mind and way of thinking. Because one of the neat things about AlphaZero is it doesn't care so much, human players and even computer software players, they worry about material balance a lot.
Yes.
And what AlphaZero worries about more is how well it can manage its position. And so it'll sacrifice pieces to open up a position so it can maneuver a little bit better. It's just interesting to me. And I think, so what I'm getting at is I think there's something to be learned from that. And so, like I mentioned to you earlier before we got on the air, that I personally learned a lot about copywriting by observing what AI would do for copywriting. And I think, to me, that's one of the biggest areas where humans should not be afraid of AI, is use it to learn things. What it isn't perfect. I mean, gosh, everyone chat GPT, it's the rage, right? I mean, and now there's a billion people out there posting ads about how they're going to teach you how to write the exact right prompt. But I mean, it obviously, it kind of proves a point about that. Garbage in, garbage out still exists. I mean, if you give it a crummy prompt, you're going to get a crummy result. That simple. But learn from it, right? Like we mentioned earlier, and I wanted to ask you this question. I've heard that there's a lot of people using AI to write blog posts, and it kind of makes sense because we don't have a lot of time for that, but yet it's important. And so the AI can crank out an article really quickly. But I'm hearing that Google may consider dropping your rankings if they figure out that your content was created by AI. And there's plenty of tools out there right now that you could literally run a blog post and it'll say it's 90% AI. What is your thoughts on that?
So there's so many areas I want to launch off of what you were saying, but drilling into this this blog problem, which I think is a really interesting one. First of all, the detectors that detect if it's written by AI or not have a very big problem that is one that cannot solve permanently, which is that you can use an AI that trains off of that detector. So, you just keeps retesting and better using that detector to say, now it writes like a human. So the better we get at these detectors, the better the AI is going to do with it. So it's going to be an arms race. Theoretically, this one might be one of those ones where the equilibrium is a constant dynamic. So it might never settle. I, looking at this one, feel like this one's going to probably settle on the side of the fakers. That seems, seems right to me. But even putting that question aside, like, is this even possible? Should we do it? I think there is a argument for doing something like this, for Google to make this kind of decision. There's this idea that we value that which is scarce. And so one thing that is scarce, which has always been scarce and will continue to be scarce, is human attention. And so if I am a human, I am putting attention into my craft, my written post, then that is a bottleneck, and theoretically that bottleneck might have value in of itself. But even if it doesn't, it shows that if I'm putting effort here, theoretically, I could get better, or like the content would be better if it's built by an AI that can do it an infinite number of times, or billions and trillions of times. There's this question of, is that content going to be as valuable? Or more importantly, is it Google's responsibility with their scraper bot to look through that trillions of potential articles and choose which one is most popular, especially if then all of a sudden the blog writers are only optimizing for that which is done correctly by is ranked by the SEO bot, the spider bot, I think is what the SEO people call it. So then you get this weird arms race. It's like, is this really about humans anymore? Is this about actually like helping us still, or is this not going to work out? And so we could be in a situation like the stock market where like humans have really been removed, and we're not getting the same level of value that we would have hoped for in the beginning. So I think that is a pretty reasonable argument for a process, for a decision like that coming from Google. But A, that's assuming that this is even possible with the the detector issue I was talking about before. But B, I think there's another challenge here, I think there's another more elegant solution, which is that right now Google will already prioritize Wikipedia. It's already going to prioritize the New York Times. It's already going to prioritize those agents which have proven themselves to be respectable. And for those agents to continue to enjoy that position, they will have to continue to produce high level of content, high quality of content. And so I think that the more obvious equilibrium that's going to settle here is that the distance between the haves and the have-nots is going to grow more here, and that we're probably going to find a stronger oligarchy of websites that are going to be mastering multiple domains because it's easier for Google to trust them. And if they're using AI, then they can produce more content across more domains with simply the trust of the community that they are putting the right QA processes to make sure that content is actually of high level. And that's probably one of the most nerdy ways I could possibly explain it, but I think that's relatively followable. But that's what it looks like to me.
You said something really interesting there, and it made me think of kind of an opposite type solution. I think that already the content that's out there, it gets ranked based off the quality. If it's high quality, it has the right keywords in it, etc., it's going to rank really well for those searches. I actually think
right now ranked based on who references it, so it's almost like a voting mechanism of other actors, so like a democracy.
And I think that needs to continue. But I also think maybe if they want to, for lack of a better way of putting it, if you have two pieces of content that are essentially equal, if one was completely written by AI and they can tell that, and the other was not, and they can tell that, then I wouldn't penalize the one written by AI. because if the content's decent, the content's decent. Who cares? But I would maybe boost the human written content if that's where they really want to go. Like if their thought process is we want to like keep AI only content down, well, don't do that. Boost people who are actually taking the time to write their own content 100%. Seems like it would accomplish the same thing by making human written content higher up in the rankings, but at the same time, not in a negative way. Because, and I always look at people who can have the money to hire a writer, and they're reaping major rewards by having that cash to hire a writer. So, you know, it's very similar to why someone would use AI. They don't have the time to write this stuff, so they sit down and let the AI do it. What do you think about that approach?
Well, I think there's an interesting, in some ways, more fundamental issue underneath it, which is, you know, which content is going to actually solve the problem that it was meant to solve. So, you know, if you have two recipes, which recipe is going to make delicious chocolate cake? And the challenge that we're facing is that AI right now is bottom up. It's not top down. And so what that means is that it doesn't know objectively, it doesn't have a running simulation in its head to play out, like, know that you don't add 2 pounds of salt into your cake mix. And then that's going to give you a bad result. It doesn't have that internal model. And all it's doing is it's just taking a consensus of what other people have written on. And there's this really interesting idea that can actually generate higher quality content than the average. You know, there's this idea that if you put 1,000 faces on top of each other, the average face is going to be very beautiful to human onlookers, because all the micro blemishes and lack of symmetries get smoothed out when you layer 1,000 faces on top of each other. There was a fantastic example of this in the Victorian era of the inventor of this type of photography, who was kind of a dark legacy, was a fan of eugenics. He was trying to find the average criminal face, and he expected it to be like an ugly face, but it was actually beautiful, because any face, if you take the average, is going to be gorgeous. The imperfections, every imperfection is unique. So the imperfections get weeded out. So that's how these bottom up approaches look like they are actually intelligent. It's that those imperfections are weeded out, but it has its limits, because it's not able to to verify if what it's saying is actually true. And so humans, because we interface with reality, we're multimodal that way. We're tactile with physical reality. Currently are still gatekeepers of that truth until we can solve that that internal physics engine for AIs. And so I think that's a pretty deep problem here. I don't know if that quite answers a question you were putting forward there of bumping humans, but
I mean, it approaches it anyway. I mean, I think I wonder sometimes, like I mentioned to you, that I use Elementor Page Builder, and they've just recently integrated AI into that, and it can actually write like CSS code. But I wonder, like, in all reality, any of the AI writing tools, or even like ChatGPT, they're only as good as the prompt you give them.
Yes.
When you give it a good prompt, it can come up with some pretty amazing ideas. But I look at it more like in my business, I use it more for ideas. Like, hey, give me 10 YouTube video ideas around this concept, and sometimes it gives you things you just wouldn't have thought of, and it gives you a lot of common, this is what's really popular right now kind of stuff. But but it does, out of maybe 10, I might get 3 that are like, wow, those are great ideas. And I could have brainstormed for weeks and not come up with those 3 ideas. So in that respect, it's worthwhile. But I kind of worry about it what's the word I'm trying to say? Invading every aspect of the business world. So, it started with chatbots, and one place where, I'm actually finishing a book right now about chatbot to human handoff, because it's a piece that I'm actually kind of shocked that companies haven't figured out that your chatbot can't do it all, man. And when it doesn't know, saying, sorry, I don't know the answer, probably isn't the right answer. Saying, hey, let me upgrade you to speaking to a human. And they're not going to be here till 9 a.m. So you're going to have to wait a little while. That'd be fair. I had what actually inspired my book was I was awake at like 2 a.m. and I was out on an e-commerce site and I asked a question and the chatbot came back with, "I'm sorry, I don't know that answer." And I thought, well, when are we going to find who's going to be able to tell me the answer? When are they coming to work?
Yeah, that doesn't help.
And it didn't help me at all. But then if you when you have the people who know how to pass off the chatbot to the human and they do it properly, now you feel like you've been helped because,
yes.
Okay, I'm not going to get an answer now, but I am going to get one by 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., whatever. You know it's coming today. But
yeah, what you're saying here, I think, is so beautiful, and it really lines up with one of my core arguments for the future of this, which is that humans are going to be amplified. We're not going to be replaced. And so the things that we have enough data to say, like, this is how you can answer this question every time, because every time we've gotten this question, we've answered in the same way and have, it's kicked ass. Those we can run, but we still need a human that can solve the problem higher up the chain. And well, first of all, I just wanted to say that and let you finish, but I completely cannot agree with that more.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, hey, what's your return policy? How many days do I have to return this item? Chatbot can throw that answer back all day long. It's the same answer. But hey, I got this item and it didn't come with the battery. Now what do I do? It's not going to know the answer to that probably. It may, depends how it's programmed, I guess. But
it's important to say that we're recording this in the beginning of June 2023.
Right, because who knows? Maybe by next year it might. And it's interesting. It's like when Siri first came out. One of the things that people were shocked by compared to, say, like Alexa from Amazon or Google Assistant is some of the witty answers that it would give you. And what people didn't realize is that Apple paid people. They were grabbing pieces of the requests that were sent, and they were like, "Oh, we don't have an answer for that, but here, let's pay you to write a funny answer for that." And it, wrote the funny answer. I always like asking it, like, what's 0 divided by 0? It comes up with a really funny answer. And I think that was very smart on Apple's part to, like, all right, these are questions we weren't prepared to, we didn't prepare our software to answer, but now we're going to have an answer for it. And it made it so that software has, made its way into cars all over the world, much more robustly and quickly than any of the other AI assistants that are out there. Like you don't get into a car and say, "Hey Alexa, what do we do? How do I get to this restaurant?" But you sure can to ask Siri that, and it's really interesting to me. But my concern, like what I was getting at, is, and I'm glad to hear you say what you said, because I actually agree with you. I think that if the AI done correctly is going to amplify the human and not like bury the human. And that's what my really good friend, she's so scared of the fact that, oh, everyone's going to be put out of business because the AI is going to do it. Well, first of all, it's not a robot. You have to drive it. We've had this thing called machine learning for a long time. So it's not that much different. And I think that if it's done correctly, the human's role is going to basically be more specialized and not so, you're not going to get pushed to the back. You're going to be pushed to the front, because the AI can only handle so much, and then it's going to pass it off to the human to handle the rest. And even with, I tell people all the time with writing tools, go ahead and consider that your first draft that might have taken you 2 or 3 days to write, you can get it done in 10 minutes. And now go in there and fix that thing and make it your own. But just over the weekend, I discovered from reading something that if you have enough content out there on the internet, I could literally ask it to write in your tone, and it will. And my wife didn't believe me. So I said, we were doing a landing page for an event she's holding. And I asked it to write in her tone. And it used words that, generally speaking, she's the only person I've heard use those words in that context, And she's like, how did it know? I said, it read your content. It knows your content. And if it didn't, it wouldn't have worked at all, but it worked because it knew who you were. I find that intriguing just on all sorts of levels. So like where do you personally see AI potentially having the biggest growth? What area do you see it having the biggest potential for growth?
Biggest potential for growth. We're talking about impact to the wider economy or potential to revolutionize things that has not yet touched?
Potential to revolutionize things it hasn't touched.
Got it. That's a fantastic question. And if I'm, taking on the role of AI futurist, this is what I'm spending
Right up
most
your
of my
alley.
time thinking about. Yep. When I think about this, a model, because I like to think about these things in models and frameworks. Like, okay, let me put on these lenses and then see what kind of interesting ideas pop up. Is if we look at in the turn of the 1900s, when electricity started to propagate throughout Western countries, and Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, and we started setting up the AC current power plants and set up all this amazing infrastructure we take for granted now. We had done something incredible, which is that we could now put power, and the power is defined as the ability to convert energy into work, to do physical work. We could add that to just about anything. So all of a sudden, a screwdriver became a power. The word's escaping me, but became a power tool. A sledgehammer became a jackhammer. A candle became a light bulb. All these things where every single thing was touched, and I think we're in the middle of something similar with intelligence, where we humans are very multimodal. We go from context to context, and because we're both bottom up thinkers and we're top down thinkers, and that mixture allows us to go from context to context and perform decently well in pretty much any environment we find ourselves in. But most devices are really just in one context the whole time. They only need the data that they're exposed to. And so I think we're going to be adding intelligence to just about any device that you can think of. And I am incredibly excited as this enters more into our physical reality, that these AIs start becoming advanced enough to start understanding more and more the physics that we're dealing with. And I'm really excited for what this is going to result in a renaissance in material sciences and in theoretical physics. I think that's really the holy grail that anybody who's really worth their salt in this space kind of understands. It's really nice for these apps to serve better ads for people. I give you better ads on Facebook, but the holy grail is really can we push the envelope for humanity? And I think that has to eventually come back to the physical sciences.
That's an interesting take. I really think so. I think, and I also think you're right. I think there's so many places where AI could save people time, and that's one of the things that I coach tech executives, and one of the biggest problems that they have. It's funny when you talk to people who are not intimately familiar with tech executives, and I say to them, "Oh, I teach them how to hire and retain their own tech army. I teach them how to communicate with upper management, and I teach them how to set boundaries so that they get a perfect work-life balance." People say, "Well, what makes you think that that's their only problem?" Well, it's not their only problem, but it's the driver of many of their problems. So for instance, wrong staff, you're not going to be as efficient. You're going to have to do a lot of things yourself. If you don't empower your staff, you're gonna have to do a lot of things yourself too. Communicating with upper management, they're gonna put a lot of pressure on you if they don't understand what's going on. They're spending money, and all too many executives see tech as a black hole of cash that just eats money. These days, it doesn't just eat money; it also generates the revenue that they're making to spend. And then the last thing, is just setting boundaries, like telling people no to things. And my biggest one when I was a CTO is, "Mike, you got 5 minutes? I just need 5 minutes." I'd pull out a timer from Radio Shack and set it on the desk and say 500. If you're not done by the time the beeper goes off, we have to set an appointment. It worked. People stopped asking for 5 minutes when they meant 30.
Yep.
But the point
so
is,
Mike, I'm hearing for those three problems. They had there were people, and people.
yeah, exactly. It's all
Yes.
people, and it's all about how you handle it. And so, like, if AI can take some things off your plate, or at least like we said, like, hey, I'm creating the first draft of this document. Great. But here's where people get in trouble. I just read an article maybe a week ago about an attorney who generated an entire legal brief using ChatGPT, but didn't check anything. Well, ChatGPT made up some case law that didn't exist.
Yep.
And imagine how dishonest you come off when the judge has a clerk researching this going, Your Honor, I can't find these cases anywhere. There's no such citation. I don't understand. And you come off looking like this giant liar. So it has to be handled the right way. People can't be removed from the equation completely. And I think that's also, I think you also agree with that. And I don't feel that AI will ever replace. People keep thinking of AI like a robot that's going to take your job, take over your household. You know, eventually an army of robots is going to come and take over the world. You know, that's where their brain goes, but that's not really what we're talking about here. And I think that's an important message for people to get out there. But this has been a really interesting conversation. I'd actually like to have you back on another time for us to delve more into the topic. I mean, you're actually a really easy guy to talk to about this. I've had some people on there just very it's going to sound weird, but you kind of remind me of myself, because I was voted by this group of people as the most user-friendly technologist because I speak English. You know, I don't talk to them like a computer, and you don't either. So I think, you know, kudos to you. I mean, that's probably a big reason why you've gone as far as you've gone as quickly as you have, because I think when people stop talking,
I'm still working on my FM DJ radio voice. I got
well, you have to have 4 podcasts like me for that to come out. But it's funny, you know, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's like a human nature thing. Like, I obviously read that intro because, you know, memorizing it would be, you know, more effort than I really want to put in. So I read the intro, but then for some reason it just naturally comes out that way. And it's not how I talk normally. It just comes out that way. And I think it's just another one of those like habitual things that, you know, you do as a human being. So, but why don't you let people know where they can find you if they want to reach out and get to know you a little bit better?
Yeah, so I'm CEO of Valhalla.team. You can just look us up on Valhalla.team, and we help tech companies build their software development team. And additionally, right now, you know, AI is a big focus of ours because we're specifically looking for clients, but also for partners to start new companies with the intention of growing ventures over 2 to 3 years, and then selling those ventures. And so if that sounds interesting to you, or you just want some tech advice, feel free to just reach out to us, and you can find us on Valhalla.team.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure that gets into the show notes and the description of the video. And in the meantime, thank you everyone for tuning in to Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge. We hope you've had a great time with us, learning everything you need to know. Stay ahead of that technology curve. Remember, be curious, be updated on all the latest trends, and show them who's the boss. Until next time, we'll be back with plenty more techie tips and tricks so you can stay on top of your game.